see? I really did. I was just going to my office, and I looked out and saw Old Blue down there. And that's how I used to set how many years you play in the NFL? 13, 14? Yeah. Like, if that truck wasn't out in the lot, then he was either snowmobiling, fishing. He was out of town somewhere. Otherwise, he was down there training. And, what a great benefit that was has been for our program to have our athletes, current athletes, get to watch a guy like him, the way he worked just so methodically and so routinely throughout his pro career and have the kind of success he had. So just first and foremost for Marshall to be honored, this weekend is really, really special and so deserving. So what a great list of awardees on that wall too. So you more than fit on that wall. Any wall it's worth having. All right, you should be up there. So great to see you, Marshall. Appreciate that. Appreciate everybody being here. Good afternoon. And it was a unusual weekend having Saturday off. We don't get that experience too often, so it's kind of funny when you have a chance to step away for a little bit. It's almost like a week off in some ways, just a good mental break and chance for everybody to rest a little bit. And I got back at it Sunday, so just a quick look backwards. Happy to get the win as always. Anytime you get a chance to get a victory, that's a good thing. And just thought going into the game, there are a lot of challenges we talked about last week, being a night game, Friday night game, short week. It was a late kickoff, certainly, and then first and foremost, playing a good opponent. So just really proud of the way our guys handled the week. Thought we played with good energy, certainly good focus. And, just after watching the tape, I thought both of our lines showed some growth on Friday night. Happy about that. And then, some spark plays, obviously a lot of takeaways out there. And maybe the biggest play in the game was the one that Sebastian Castro came up with. We got a score and kicked off, and then, he made a great play, just, read the guy cutting back, knifed in there and made a great tackle, knocked the ball out. And so we come out with the ball and then turned that into a score, and that really was a big, big play. But I think the bigger story there is a guy like Sebastian Castro who, really is not a household name. He's done a lot of good things in the program here for a couple of years, been a really good scout team player. And, I think as offensive coaches really thought he had a chance to be a good football player for us. And hoping now that this is a start, he's kind of stacked behind some good players at his position. We have some veterans at the safety spot. But that kind of play hopefully can lead to better things for him in his career. And team-wise, that's what we need. We need big plays, obviously, from guys maybe you haven't heard of, and maybe some more good stories. So just really pleased about that and pleased for Sebastian. He's worked real hard. Captains this week as we turn our eyes towards Penn State. We've got Tyler Linderbaum offensively. You've got Matt Hankins, Jack Kerner, and Spencer Petras. Be the four guys going up. Medically, we're in pretty good shape, I think, relative to this time of year. So right now it looks like everybody's got a shot to be ready to go here. And obviously, we got a real tough challenge in front of us right now, and there's going to be a lot of tension in this game, already is, I'm sure. So, that's what's in front of us right now, and really our message hasn't changed in 5 weeks. This is week 6 now. It's all about us trying to get better on a daily basis, and that's about as simple as it is. And that's what we need to be focused on, besides trying to match up against a really good opponent. And, we got a young football team. We're 5 games into it, so we've learned a lot about our guys. But, there's always work to do, and we certainly are in that mode right now. Just a couple words about Penn State. I've been following them since I was basically in elementary school, growing up in that part of the country. And it's funny, the story doesn't change a heck of a lot. A lot of things that were true when I was young are still true right now. They've got outstanding players. They've always had good players there. I can't remember a year where they didn't. They're very well coached, and, Coach Franklin's really got them playing well right now. They're playing at a high rate, and last Saturday is real, obviously good evidence of that. Offensively, their quarterback is a veteran player, can make any throw that they ask him to make. And besides that, he's a dangerous runner. They'll run with him a little bit by design. But I think maybe as dangerous as anything is if it's not there for him or something opens up, he'll just pull it down and go. And, he'll throw off the run, or he'll take it and make the yardage necessary for a first down, or even more than that. So, that's where it all starts there. And, again, he's a veteran player. He's a leader. He's the guy they look for, or look to, I should say. Big veteran group up front, and they're a good group. They've got 2 outstanding tight ends, really good backs. They always do. And then the receiver core, I think, is probably as good as we've seen. I'm as impressed with number 5 as anybody we've seen this year. And I say that with all due respect. We've played against some really good players so far, but their receiver's a tremendous football player. It's a real good group, but he's outstanding. Defensively, aggressive, really with their approach. They're a high-pressure team, a lot of movement. And then most importantly, we got good players, and they play hard, and they're, giving up 12 points a game right now. So that's going to be a challenge. And then special teams-wise, they're doing a great job there in all phases, and not a big surprise either. So kid captain this week, we got Cale Schmidt, who's from Goose Lake, and for the record, there is no Goose Lake. I've checked that out with Lucas Empen on our team. But, Cale's an outstanding young guy. He's beat cancer twice now, and this fall, 5 years from the last bout. So that's certainly a positive thing, and happy for him. And, we're going to have a great environment Saturday, too, certain of that. It'll be a great environment out there. But one thing we told our players, just like last week, the fans don't play the game. So it's up to us to make sure we get ready and know that we're going to have to be at our best at 3 o'clock, 3:05 on Saturday to have an opportunity in this game. Throw it out for questions.
Kayvon and Terry both got their first interceptions last Friday. Both of them kind of their path to becoming impact players. What type of examples are they for the rest of the team in terms of them just being unselfish, putting their head down and working and seeing that come to fruition?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about Terry this year, at least I think I have, and just, to that point, that's where we're hoping Sebastian follows that path. But Terry really made his mark on special teams and has been playing a real high level on special teams, takes a lot of pride in it, and so it's great to see him get his first interception. That's fun. And Kayvon, same thing. He's been a good special teams player to climb the ladder. But last year was really the first year we had enough, faith and trust in him to see him as a starter, and we've always seen him as a starter since the start of last year. Little different path. He was more of a basketball player in high school. Wasn't really recruited very heavily in football, and we just thought he had some potential as a football player. So really happy he's on our team. But both guys are great guys. They work hard, and just really high energy guys. That helps our football team. But good for them to get. That's something obviously every DB wants to do is get a pick or two, and good for them to have some success in game action.
I know there was only one Bob Sanders, but does it take you back when you've got this guy from Erie Cathedral Prep flying around on special teams, causing mayhem?
Yeah, I mean, there's a parallel for sure, and both about the same height too. Terry might have him by maybe a quarter inch, something like that, but a little different build. But yeah, Erie's been pretty good to us. We haven't had a lot of guys out of Erie, but the ones we've had have been pretty good to us for sure. And Jovan Johnson was actually the guy who kind of put us on to Terry. And when Terry got here, he was a skinny, kind of a smallish kid. But boy, he's worked hard. The energy he plays with and the pride he takes in what he does has really been impressive. And I think I said last week, we consider him a starter at corner. I think it's the same as what I talked about a little earlier. We got a couple of good players that are veteran guys. Otherwise, he would be starting for us. So for him to get that action out there and have a chance to get a pick, that was great. But he's been doing a great job on special teams for sure.
Look at years ago, you were coaching the offensive line in a game over here, 1 against 2. Anything about that week that you learned that you're able to use to prepare this team?
Yeah, I think the big takeaway from that game to today would be that I tried to tell our guys yesterday that the energy, just when you walk in the stadium that day, it's rare. I mean, when you get in an environment like that, and Marshall's been in that environment in the NFL. There's just certain games you can feel when you walk in the stadium, especially when the crowd gets in there. So, that part's really neat. You got to be prepared for that. But again, the fans aren't going to play the game. They're going to be there to help us. They're not going to play the game. And then the other takeaway, whether it's that game or any every game counts. Every game's really important. But there obviously are certain games where it's a little bit more visibility. And the more you can stay centered on what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to, and that was the task last week. I mean, we didn't know what we were walking into, 3-4 weeks back when we had to travel, same thing. So you better keep your eyes on the target, and the target's, all about what you're doing, your performance, and the more you get wrapped up in all that other stuff, boy, I tell you, the harder it is to be successful. So that's really the trick, I think, is try to block all the other stuff up. And like a week like this, everybody needs tickets. People you haven't heard from in 5 years are calling about tickets, all that stuff, So nobody's mad about it, but that's just the way it goes. So, deal with it. And I say, ask Marshall about going to a Super Bowl, right? You hear from everybody, right? I mean, everybody in the world. Like you get 80 free tickets to the Super Bowl. That doesn't happen. But anyway, so that's part of it. Yeah, just trying to, let's play football. I'll come right back. I'm sorry.
Okay, when you look at what Phil has been able to do and accomplish as a secondary coach and now as a defensive coordinator, what is the kind of a distinguishing characteristic of how he's able to build players who are 3-star or 2-star guys and elevate not only them as individuals but then the unit and be as successful as what they are?
Yeah, so I apologize. I didn't read my notes clean enough. One thing I omitted. Fox is doing the game this week, so I'll put a shameless plug in for Bob Stoops. And I only bring that up, you triggered a thought there. So when Bob was playing for us, I used to look across the field and had a lot of respect for the way Michigan State played defense, and always kind of thought Phil should have been like one of the Stoops brothers, right? In some way, because the way they played, thought he was their version of our Stoops family. And Bob, I had the good pleasure of knowing Bob as a person. I'm looking at Phil across the field, but you get to know Bob as a player and then as a GA, and then he ended up, working on our staff. You could just tell, there's a football gene to him. He grew up doing it, and he was in a football family. And so I always kind of looked at Phil as that same way without knowing Phil, but I did, for whatever reason. Certain guys you just kind of follow, you respect what they do. And when it came time to hiring a secondary coach here, first of all, Norm endorsed Phil strongly, and the other thing I knew about Phil, he wasn't a coaching vagabond. Been at Michigan State, went to Toledo, and now he's been here 22 years plus. So he's into coaching. He's not into being a celebrity or all that kind of stuff. And he was a no-star or 2-star or whatever, right? So was Bob. Like, neither one of those guys were big recruits, so they really learned how to play, and they relied on that and became really good players as a result. And he's just, I describe him as a pure coach. He's a coach's coach, and I think our players, any good football player appreciates a coach who's genuine, authentic, and is truly trying to make the player better, but cares about the player too. And I think Phil embodies all those traits.
I want to go back to '85 also, the Iowa-Michigan game. How do you remember Hayden that week?
Yeah, I really don't. He was pretty consistent most of the time. The one game he was geeked for was Texas. Obviously, that was we all knew, coaches and players all knew that was a big one for him. But he handled it well. He just, kept everything steady and tried to keep everybody where they should be. And, it was a heck of a game, obviously a heck of a game. And, but it wasn't the end of the story. And it's like this one. This is the 6th game. It's awfully important, I think, to both teams. But, life's going to go on afterwards, and we all got to realize that. But we got a window just like last week. We had a shorter window. You want to maximize everything you can. But there's no question anybody was in the stadium that night or day, a late day, like this one, it feels different when you're in a game like that.
How special is it for you when these games don't happen very often when we're talking about a game from 36 years ago?
Yeah, well, I tried to explain that. And Penn State plays in a lot more of these than we do probably, right? I haven't done the research, but it's just, it's what you want to play for. It's fun. It's fun when the chips are on the table, and that's good. And, but it's still about trying to beat your opponent. That's what it gets down to. And it's a match, we all got the same amount of time. So who can do the best job of getting ready?
You talked about being incredibly impressed with Jahad Dotson.
Yeah.
So, what sort of stands out about him on film?
Everything. He's a really good athlete, which is great. I'm not going to say a lot of people are, but there's a lot of really good athletes out there. But he's a football player, just the way he does everything. Let me just start back up by saying, okay, I'm not an expert in the passing game or receiver play. Believe me, I did coach helped out the receivers when I was a student coach at UConn. Put that on my resume, it's really important. So, a lot of help as freshmen. But anyway, but you just watch him play. Everything, there's no wasted movement. He's concise. Everything's really just sharp. I got to think the pro guys watching him really like him because he's a really decisive player. So he's a talented player, but he also is he's a good football player. Like, he plays hard. So, and that's the thing about them. They've got a lot of guys that are just really good players. And I go back to the 2002 game, it looked like we were in good shape, and next thing you know, boom, it's overtime. So that's what you got to realize. You're playing a team that can just, close the gap really fast because they got some guys.
Going back to Phil.
He's one of those guys. I mean, he's a guy, really good guy.
Going back to Phil and kind of the way the defense has been structured, how much input or decision making did you have in deciding to go with kind of the quarter scheme and a lot of times too high just to avoid the big play rather than be really aggressive man defense or something like that?
So I actually said this in an interview on Saturday, and I go back, when you talk about our defense, it starts with Norm. I always thought, talking about Coach Fry, excuse me, one of the best people I've ever worked with in my life, best human beings and coaches was Bill Brazier, and is Bill Brazier. And to this day, Bill and Norm, totally different backgrounds, right? And Bill was all Texas, and Norm is, Detroit, Hazel Park, and be specific. But totally different personalities, yet very similar. Just really good people and really good coaches. And so long story short, when we were trying to decide, and we interviewed 3 really good candidates. So to me, it's all about, the only thing I was opinionated on is, if we're going to play defense, the other team's got to block us, okay? We better not give up big plays, and then we better know how to tackle, because you can't play defense if you don't do those three things, in my opinion. That was it. So whether it's a 3-4 scheme, 4-3, man, all that stuff, all I got to, some thoughts about coverages, but not, you just don't want to give up big plays a lot, because it's not good. So that's really what it was, and then it was more about the person. And, we struck gold with Norm, and then just seemed like the natural progression, and Phil's taking it and run with it. But it's also, he'd be the first to tell you, it's a staff effort. We got a really good staff. Everybody's got input. Everybody's input counts. It's important. It's just how we try to run this whole program, where everybody's got ownership and, they got investment, because, they're the guy, they're the experts. KB is the expert, the D-line, him and Jay and Seth with the linebackers and all that. So, I mean, see what they say. They're the guys coaching those guys. They know their players better than anybody.
Amazing how Penn State matchups in your tenure here have just been so significant. You're like 2000, 2004, 2002, 2008, 2009. In good ways. There's been some bad ones.
Yeah, oh yeah.
What stands out to you? And why is it always such a pivotal moment?
I can't answer it. It's just that's the way it is. It's the way it's been. And we had the '83 game is one of my favorite games of my career. As a coach, right? I don't have any as a player, so I mean, but that was a great game, just an unbelievable football game. So we, and that was, whatever it was, 38 or 48. It was a track meet, and then that 6-4 win is. So it's just, but that you're playing an established program. If you talk about programs that you really don't need much explanation, Penn State's in that handful of national teams that. So it's a challenge when you're playing them, and the one thing for sure, just like I alluded to, if you going back a long ways, if you're not ready to play, it could be embarrassing. So you better get ready to play.
Kirk, your offense utilizes the tight end much the same way Hayden did. Can I assume that's not a coincidence since you spent 9 years with Hayden?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's definitely fair.
When you got here, the tight end was standing up. How
I'm sure, but there's a reason we're not doing that now. With all due respect. And there's a reason why they did that, why Coach Fry did that, and then it just continued. But it goes back to North Texas. The simple, smart answer I always give is, in the 80s, every time we lost, I'd go home and Mary'd say, you guys didn't throw the ball to the tight end enough, and she was right usually. There's just something about, tight end play, I think that's it's kind of like philosophy about defense. And then all I know is, again, I'm not very smart, but the smart defensive coaches I've been around, including in the NFL, if the other team had a good tight end, it really just seemed to really bother them and throw them out of kilter and out of whack. So there's just something about that. If you have that in your arsenal, if you got a couple of them, that's even better. But there's some real value. I just think it puts a little different pressure on a defensive team than not having one. But that's our personal belief. That's all.
Kirk, I think you've said every week, if not twice a week, on Tuesday and after the game, that you're still not quite sure how good this team is that you've got here. And is this week the week where you feel like you might have a better sense of that, or are you just going to continue every week a little bit more information?
No, and every year is the same in one regard. And then this year, I went on record a lot of times since August, probably before that. We do have a young team. I go back to that show of hands back the first day of spring ball. So, the good news there is that, there's more opportunity for growth. And I think, we've taken some steps certainly over 5 weeks, some forward, some backwards too. But that's part of the process. And, you never know about your entire team, really. I mean, I think about 02, maybe as good a season we had. It really wasn't until late October when we really kind of hit stride. And so that's part of it, and every team's like that, not just us. It's just you're always learning about your team. And, this thing could go a couple different ways Saturday. So whatever way it goes, we'll learn about our team too afterwards, whether it goes good, bad, or indifferent. How do you handle that the next week, and then how do you keep moving forward? And that's why you play 12 games and then whatever's afterwards. And I'm not making fun of it, but I'm always entertained just by all the chatter, starting in January with the too early for top 25 polls that come out the 2 hours after the last bowl game, or even during bowl season. And I get that, and that's why fans go to games. I love that. I mean, believe me, I appreciate that. But as a coach, you can't get too caught up in that stuff because you just never know. And it just give you a quick, simple aside. Like, so many things could change in the next 5 days, right? Just on the surface. So you just never know.
Penn State's found some help in the transfer portal you have in the past. Do you see that happening? Are you going to see that happen more and more, do you think, especially when teams have success with that?
I really think it's a lot like the NIL stuff. I think it's going to be interesting to watch the next couple of years, and the free transfers that we have now, right? That's basically what's opened up everybody gets a hall pass, and some people were getting them anyway before. But now everybody's got one. At least they get one mulligan card in their pocket. So yeah, and we've played against a lot of transfers over the last 4 or 5 weeks, and we'll see more this year. And for whatever reason, it didn't really work out for us that way this year. But Jack Heflin helped us. Like I said, we shop at a little different store than maybe some other people. But look at Heflin; he's on the Packers squad, right? He was a couple of weeks ago. I hope he still is. Yeah, what a great story. All right, so we got the right guy. But anyway, that's kind of it's going to happen. I'm afraid. Yeah.
When you look at those guys, Van Valkenburg. Well, what's his story? I mean, you don't pull guys out of D3 schools or D2 or whatever.
D2, I think. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I only know that because we got involved in it. I can't remember how his tape got here or how the whole thing came up, but this is year 3, right? So, we were, like always, we never have enough depth, and just intrigued. And when we watch a film, it's kind of funny. It's like Marshall's film. This is how smart of an evaluator I am, right? I looked at Marshall's film and said, okay, Reese, at least we could redshirt this guy, because I'm going back to when I was here in the 80s. All of our JC guys sat for 2 years and they played as 5th-year guys. Ron Hallstrom, Brett Miller. Next thing you know, they're in the NFL. So I said, we can at least redshirt him, and then, he seemed like a tough guy on film. I didn't know how good a player he was. And so, expert evaluation, right? After about 3 days in practice that spring, I was like, he is our best lineman right now. But it took that long to figure it out. And the one thing about Zach just played hard. You don't know level of competition, all that kind of stuff, but he played hard every film you watched. And that's really the guy he is now. I've referenced this in 19. Basically, his role is to give A.J. Epinesa, 10 plays off, 12 plays off a game. He was just a guy out there kind of running in place, and, the other guy put his hand up and he couldn't go anywhere. Last year, he played really well, and he's playing really well right now. And besides that, he's a leader for us in a very young group of guys. So, the value of that, too, what they bring besides their playing, and Marshall is the same way. Good football player, yeah, but, there's a reason the Ravens basically made him their franchise player. They weren't going to let him leave that building because they understood what he did to the locker room. And there's so much value in that besides running 40-yard dashes or all that other stuff.
The turnover to points ratio this year has been a really big part of the team's success. How would you assess the offense's ability to operate efficiently, especially when given a short field most of the time?
Yeah, and that was a highlight the other night. We're getting the turnover and there was points. So that's a good football teams learn how to do. And, getting those stops is great and getting the ball back. But, if you don't show something for it, and that's why I referenced that one sequence. That pretty much, took the heart out of their football team, that bang, bang. That's a demoralizing, you're getting 2 scores for, before they even snap the ball. And that's a really good deal. So kind of the same discussion as getting in the red zone. You want to come out with touchdowns if you can. you know, any points are better than no points, but you want to get touchdowns. So, you know, those are all good things. And, you know, opportunistic teams learn how to do that.
How helpful has it been to have the depth in the secondary where 6 interceptions from 6 different players?
Yeah, I mean, I joke about it. It's not like we got a drill for this stuff, so if we did, we should do it more. But it's just, I think that's experience. I think there are experience. But it's also, you know, it's a team effort, and all the guys would tell you, the guys in the back end would tell you. And that's where stats, I know, you know, stats come up a lot, but I made a point in letting our guys know. By record, we didn't have a sack the other night. But you know, we're letting the quarterback be uncomfortable, and there's value in that too. So if you can hurry throws or get the guy moving where he's not comfortable, and then, you know, have to throw the ball there, that stuff doesn't show up in a stat column. But that's, you know, that's the beauty of a guy like Van Valkenburg or some of those guys when they're working hard up front.
If I recall correctly, it was a tough decision to redshirt T.J. Hawkinson in 16, where it was just hold him back. I mean, probably could have used him later in the year, but that was before the 4-game mulligan rule or whatever. How much has that changed you? Because he left after 3 years. Fant left after 3 years. Same thing with Epineza. And are you now more willing to push those true freshmen into the lineup because they're not going to be here for 5 years of football?
I've definitely jumped into that school of thought. Like, I just assume players that are playing are going to leave after 3. And, you know, Matt Hankins is a great example of a guy who didn't, right? He chose to come back this year. And had he left, that wouldn't have been totally surprising to me. But I think it also shows some wisdom on his part and some maturity, because it was the best thing for him if he does want to continue to play. And, you know, common sense would tell you that. There's a risk reward in everything you do, but common sense would say that's the best way to go. There aren't many, well, Tom Brady, but there aren't many, you know, 38-year-old players in the NFL. So if you can make yourself more NFL ready, there's a lot of upside to that. But also the world we live in right now, kind of like the transfers and all that, that's just not the way people think anymore. So, you know, you got to change your thinking with what's going on. And then if you do benefit from a guy staying in his another year like Matt did, then great, that's awesome. And but he's staying because he wanted to stay, not because, you know, we talked him into it or something like that.
As far as Sam Laporta goes, you threw him out there kind of by necessity, but you know, it didn't seem like he was ready, but he played hard. And how has his growth been? And do you think that true freshman year helped him?
It does. That's there's two sides to every coin. That, you know, if I was a commissioner of sports, which I will never be, or a commissioner of football, like, no freshman would ever play. Period. It's the best thing for him. Let him go to school. Let them get de-recruited, all the nonsense that everybody talks about. And now, you know, Uncle Jim's not calling, hey, how come you're not playing 48 snaps instead of only 21? All those things that's unfair to the kid, the player, that happen in this real world. You know, the best thing for them all would be just to sit. Okay, this is going to kill our recruiting for the next 15 years, right? But fortunately, I have no say on that, so I'll flip it over. So you know, can't beat them, join them. That's the world that I think is perfect, but it's not going to happen. Nobody cares what I think. So the reality is, like, you know, and when we look at guys right now, hey, just play them. If they can play and play, you know, you can do some mental damage too to guys by playing them before they're ready. That's not fair, and that's not good. It's not healthy. But you know, you want guys to play, and you know, let them go if that's the best thing for them. In Sam's case, it was.
The top 5 showdowns don't happen very often. Do you preach to your guys about opportunity and also just enjoying
Oh, yeah.
you know, this what they're going to experience?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's like the game we're referencing from 50 years ago. I'll remember that as long as I live, just because of the environment that day. And that's, you know, yeah, not everybody gets that chance. We didn't play any of those games at UConn or Maine, I can tell you that. So, you know, it's a pretty cool thing. Yet football's still important, you know. I mean, what the essence of football is. But yeah, these are neat experiences, and you know, we just happen to be the guest at the party this year. You know, we get to play Penn State, and that's good.
That same note, some of the guys were saying already on Saturday they were getting texts from their family. It's going to be 3 versus 4. It's going to be a huge game. Kind of hyping it up, and they were saying, you know, they're telling their own family, saying, I got a job to do, or just Spencer was saying he would just go and maybe like a text message, not even respond to people. What advice have you given these guys on everything that comes with this? And it's not even the first time you've had to deal with this season, but
yeah, I mean, I think you know how I feel about rankings in October and September. You know, we just happen to be 5-0 right now, and so do they. So that's the way it is. But you know, those things will be a lot more valid 4, 5, 6 weeks from now. And I hope we are in that discussion, but we got to earn that, and that's really what the key thing is. That, you know, it's not a 5-week season or 6-week season. You know, you don't get any prizes. Nobody's going to announce a bowl matchup next week. You know, I know they do the prognostications weekly. I get that, but they really don't count. Those are paper money, monopoly money, and you know, nothing really counts till you get to the finish line. So enjoy the. You know, these are two good teams. I mean, there's no debating that. We're both good teams, and so enjoy that part. But you know, we got a lot of football ahead of us right now, and this is a really important game because it's, first of all, it's the next one up, and that makes it the most important game. But you know, it's all you can do is you give it our best, and what we got to do is make sure we don't leave the door open this week because we're answering those texts or we're trying to get Johnny Smith's tickets and all that stuff. You know, and just. We got to stay in our routine and practice and prepare and do the work you got to do.
There's a lot going on this season, and obviously the focus is on one thing, but is there something personally for you that you're really proud of this team so far to this point?
Oh, yeah. Like, you know, I can't remember many teams I haven't been proud of. And, but, you know, I have the luxury, one good thing about being a coach, you watch the guys, you know, since we got together January 25th, just watch them every phase, watch how they do things, how they grow together. I think I went on record saying, and you know, in April, like, you know, it's hard to come out of spring ball or May 1st last year. It's not like, you know, you really don't have an identity yet. You've done some things, but you haven't done a lot. And now we've done a lot more things now since that time, and we've been in some tough situations together. But you know, the one thing, you know, whether you want to talk about the 80s or, and I've missed 9 years here, my 23 plus years, we've had quality guys here, you know, and that's the part that's. I've never coached at a service academy. You talk to people that coach at service academies, they just talk about the caliber of individuals you work with. And I've always felt that way about this place, you know. And I don't know a lot. I mean, you know, 4 years at UConn, 5 years at UConn, 1 year at Pitt, and 2 years at Worcester Academy. That's it. And 6 years in the NFL. So, you know, but I've been here, and we have really good. We talk about Bob Stoops in the 80s, Marshall, you know, 15 years ago. We've been really lucky that way, and this group fits in that bill.
When you talk to Sam, he recognizes the legacy of his position group here and the successful players that came before him, and wants to make sure to do everything he can to extend that legacy. In what ways, maybe, has he? And I'm not measuring him against any of the other guys, but just is he getting to the point where he is leaving the jersey in the better place type of thing?
Yeah, he's done a really, you know, from the day he walked in here, he's really been fun to coach. I mean, you visit with him, you can just feel it, right? I mean, he likes life, he likes people, and he's the same way as a football player. So when he's on the practice field, in the weight room, or just around the building, he's an